Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Marion County Espresso TV. I'm your host, Steve Woodhouse, and joining me today is a face that most Pella folks should remember, former Mayor Jim Mueller, now Republican candidate for supervisor. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to address all your viewers.
Mm-hmm. So, what made you want to run for supervisor?
You know, I questioned that myself. Once I was backed away from the political office and really kind of focused on some other things that I had to deal with, I thought long and hard about how I wanted to proceed going forward. And I've always been motivated to serve the community, whether that's the city of Pella or in this case, the entire county. I think we're called upon as a people to serve each other in capacities, in whatever gifts that God has given us. He's given them to us for a reason. And I feel that one of my gifts is being able to organize, communicate, find middle ground, gain consensus, and to lead. I think leadership is one of the things that, frankly, in politics we're always lacking or always need more of. And it's leading with the right intent. It's not for personal gain, and it's leading for the basis or for the goal of advancing the community for the right way and for the right reasons. So often you always hear people that have, all these self-serving goals, and they, I did this and I did that, and oh, I'm so great. You know what? I'm far more interested in creating a team, working together, doing stuff as a group and as an organization, honoring people that both agree and disagree with you. I think some of the things that we've seen, especially in politics today, is either you agree with me or you're evil. And that totally rubs me the wrong way. I'm far more of a traditionalist in my daily life, and specifically in politics. I go back to the days of people that serve the community as a part-time. It's not a lifetime thing.
Right.
I don't think politics is a career. It is a service to the community, and once your service is ended, whether that's 4, 8, 16, 20 years, again, not a career, then you go back to your regular job. You go back to your other life. I think advantage to that is people don't become so ingrained that they try to hang on to that power or the perceived power. That's the one thing about leadership and an elected position. If you go into it knowing that it's only temporary and you need to pass it on, then I think that would solve a lot of the issues. In fact, that's one of the reasons why, and if you look at my last mayor's letter, or my letter that I wrote when I announced that I was not going to seek re-election, was, the time has come where I need to pass the baton and allow other people to step into those roles and create the environment that they're looking for. And that's what I was after. And that's why I'm getting back in, is I look at it as an opportunity to serve. I am going to retire in the end of January. We've announced that at work, so I feel comfortable in telling your audience. I am going to retire at the end of January of 2025. And that gives me an opportunity, again, to just reach out. My life has been simplified significantly. And now I feel very comfortable in being in a position that I can give this my best effort and in order to help the community and the whole county.
And I know that some people are going to wonder this. A few months ago, there was a lot of discussion about how much of the property tax base Pella has and provides Marion County. Pella is the richest part of Marion County when you look at it. Did that play a role, like that whole conflict in the discussion about the whether or not the county should donate toward the rec center? Did that play any kind of role in your decision?
It didn't motivate me to run versus not run. That's certainly a consideration. But I would also say that, in my opinion, if a community wants to have an asset like that, it should be incumbent upon the community in order to fund that to its fruition and not necessarily rely on a county or whatever, because there are demands on the county that, quite frankly, I was in a supervisors meeting just 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about all of the road work that needs to be done and how we're reached a critical phase where we can no longer move forward. We're just trying to put on Band-Aids. We've got only enough finances in order to Band-Aid things to the point where, okay, they're passable. And I think in those kind of situations, a reasonable and responsible leader would look at that and say, we've got too many demands for all of the areas throughout the entire county to make a donation for a specific area. Yeah. And I think those are the considerations that would impact that whole process. And quite frankly, there are so many areas, outlying areas, the smaller communities, the Bussies, the Tracys, the Melcher, Dallas, all Pleasantville. I don't want to miss anybody. If I don't mention you, please don't take that personally. But I'm here to defend them as well. I want to represent the entire county, not just one area.
Right.
I'm here to represent everybody that lives in Marion County. So.
And speaking of, you mentioned the roads, and that's been a problem for as long as I've been covering the Board of Supervisors, which is quite a while now. But there doesn't seem to be much that can be done on the county level other than just trying to keep up.
There was a candidate forum last night, and we had talked about a couple of things. And one of the things that I really relished at the city of Pella, and not everything that we did at the city was, was better than anybody. That's not what I'm suggesting. My experience has been, even in business, I've been in business for 40 years. When I retire in January, it will be 30 plus years at Story Kenworthy in Des Moines. And we've always had strategic plans in place. We get a direction. We know, I recognize that there are times that things change, things come up, economy changes. However, if you don't have a 3, a 5, a 10, even a 15-year strategic plan, where you end up down the road in 10 years is purely by chance. And I think we get elected as leaders not to just float along and end up where we end up simply by chance. Our constituents expect us to lead in a concerted, organized direction that provides the benefits that everybody is looking for. That's a long answer to a short question, and I'm going to make it even longer. So my suggestion to do some of those things is fall back on, we need to create a strategic plan. We need to prioritize the things that we spend our money on, whether it's roads, whether it's EMS. That's another real hot subject. Those all need to be addressed. But we also need to prioritize those things. With limited resources, we need to look at that and say, okay, here's my pie. How do I slice that up in order to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and we move forward on our strategic plan so that in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, we are at the place that we want to be. I mean, it's just like buying a house, buying a business. We know what we want to do long term, and we take the steps that we need to do in order to achieve our goals. No different in political leadership.
And so how would you first approach a 5-year plan from the county level? I mean, there's so many different departments, so many different avenues, so many different funding streams. Where would you begin?
I think first and foremost, we'd look introspectively inside city government. And exactly as you said, you'd look at the departments and say, okay, where's our money going today? What are our demands? What are the mandates from the state?
Yeah.
What are our requirements that are a non-negotiable? You have to identify the non-negotiables first because they have to be funded. So look at that, and whatever piece of the pie that takes up, that is set aside. Then you start looking at, okay, what are the variables? What are the things that might be a short-term or a longer-term investment? What pays dividends, and how do those dividends happen? Are they generators of tax revenue? Are those the kind of things that we're focused on? Economic development is another great thing that, at the end of the day, we have to invest in economic development. We have to move forward. If we don't, as a county, we will fall behind. We have a great asset with Lake Red Rock right there, we really don't seem like we utilize that in a larger market perspective. We take care of the people in the county and those that might just happen to visit. However, we don't use that as a draw to pull more people in, either businesses, industries, or people just to visit. I think there's a lot of things that could happen out there at the lake. It's the largest single lake in the state of Iowa, and we need to leverage that.
Of course, and you dealt with this as mayor and as a council person, there are always those outside forces, like the state will come down, and with the lake, you have the Corps and the federal government.
Sure.
And obviously, you want to talk about a plan, which I'm all for having a plan. I'm not trying to nitpick here with you, Jim, but you also change legislatures every 2 years, and you have a governor, and the governor and the legislature have revised taxing and so forth so much in just the past 5 or 6 years.
Sure.
So how would you accommodate for those kind of possible changes?
A strategic plan is not something that you create and then live by. It's not carved in stone. You always look at a strategic plan and say, yes, I have a 3, a 5, a 7, a 10-year plan. The dynamics of everything that I wouldn't necessarily say that you'd want to go beyond 10 years at this point. Maybe, just put a wish list out there, you'd go beyond 10 years. But there's so many changes that happen in that period of time. You may create those with that 3, 5, 7, or maybe it's just 3, 7, and 10, whatever makes sense. However, you review those every year. You've got a plan. How is it executed? Are we still on plan? Are there changes that need to be made? You go through the big process every few years, whether it's 3 years or how often, but you always have to review it and modify it and make those changes, tweak those things where legislation makes a difference, governor makes a difference, the economy makes it, president makes a difference. All of those things can have an impact on how can you proceed and how can you move along that path of your strategic plan. And I think those are the things that it seems as if we've been lacking in some of those plans from a county basis. And I think those are some of the things that we really need to look at and implement.
And, it'd be great to see more economic development in Marion County. But when you look at the more rural areas where, the supervisors have more direct jurisdiction, what can we do to make those areas more attractive to developers? Like Bussey is the city of Bussey, but, there's not a lot of people knocking down the door to build an Attica or anywhere nearby there.
That's a great question. I think some of those, excuse me, the answer in some of those lies in, what opportunities are out there to pull people in. They're very typically agricultural based. What can we bring into the area that helps support the agriculture, that helps the transportation, the farm to market, that whole process, how to speed that, make the economy better, make it more efficient, make it so that these guys can compete more on a national level and an international level, even though they're from a small town in Iowa, whether that's in Marion County or elsewhere. We need to work together in order to make that a bigger footprint so that we have a larger voice.
And everybody complains about property taxes. And nobody's found a solution. I don't really have a lot of faith in the legislature to find the regular viewers know that I have no faith in the legislature. That's nothing new. But, what would you suggest at a county level, to kind of like keep that burden at least manageable for local property taxpayers?
Again, it comes to budgeting, a plan, and then making sure that you have a reasonable, thought out, well-designed budget so that you can look at that and manage those things. A lot of the things that we've done in the past is, again, look at where do our dollars go? Are there dollars that we can make as a county, as an investment that will pay dividends, financial dividends back to us, whether that is paying down long-term debt? We did a lot of that in prior councils and mayor. When I first ran, the debt in Pella was in excess of 50, potentially $60 million. And by the time I left as mayor, it was, I think, as I recall, and It was less than $10 million. In fact,
It was very low, but I can vouch for that.
it was very low by the time we left. And we did a lot of that by prepaying those debts, changing our finances, looking at that strategic plan and saying, what makes sense? Do we want to continue to have our own power plant? And those things. Those are the kind of discussions that we need to have, even at a county level, of saying, okay, how do I make those investments? I'm a businessman too. If I'm going to make investments, deploy that asset that I have a very limited amount of, I want to make sure that I get the biggest bang for my buck for the county, for all the citizens, whether that's financially or from an economic development or from a quality of life or a safety issue. Those are all the kind of things that you really have to look for and look at when you're making those decisions. And that comes to, again, a very good, very detailed, very well thought out and planned budget.
And I know the whole time I've been covering the supervisors, which predates this current board, they've always had budget meetings with department heads and stuff to kind of plan that out. Are there any departments you think that we're not putting enough emphasis on?
Not that I can come up with right at the moment. I mean, quite frankly, I know all the departments. I know the ones that I have not participated in the budget process to know how that discussion has gone. I would tell you I'm very familiar with the budget process. I mean, I've done it. I did it for 16 years on council and as mayor with the city of Pella. I also, before my 30-year career at Story Kenworthy, worked at Yonkers Department Stores. I was in charge of budgets for all the locations and the corporate. So I've been in budgeting and financial management basically my entire career since I graduated from Iowa State.
And as a Republican, your constituency will kind of want to see a lot of good fiscal conservatism. So what's the best strategy for that going forward when there are so many unknowns?
Can you expand on that question a little bit more?
Yeah, it's like how would you continue to kind of keep spending in line and keep the valuations of property and the taxes in line, while there's always opportunity to spend more money.
Sure.
So how would you best apply your fiscal conservative principles?
Again, it's budget management, planning, and making sure that we're living within our means. Don't overspend. And I think the one thing that I think people fall victim to is, especially when the economy is good and things are going robust and man, it's like everything is going your way and you're kind of freewheeling and you're making investments in some things that may or may not work out in the end, but things are going so well you suspect that they are. And then you start borrowing money, and then pretty soon you fall behind that power curve when all of a sudden things slow down. You need to be conservative with an eye on okay, what's the fallback position? You have to plan not only on what is it like today, but what if things took a step back? How am I going to manage that? Are there things that I can reduce or manage and change in order to help book a savings to release that burden on the taxpayers? That's always been the mindset. I mean, I'm a taxpayer in the county too, so it's always been a mindset of me of making sure that we bring on the things that we're paying for and we adopt the projects that are appropriate for us to adopt. And not all of them are. And we also need to challenge even some of the quality of life issues. I mean, if people would look back when, we developed the sports park under my tenure. And we worked as a team. I mean, we worked together with lots of different groups. And in fact, it was a 10-year process and different councils. In fact, Mayor Dobenacker was the mayor when that thing was really starting to go. It finished under my term, but Mayor Dobenacker was one of the guys that led the charge. And we were able to look at that and say, yes, you know what, we agree with that. That's something that is a need in the community, and we support that. However, financially, we couldn't step into that role as a community and say, we're going to pay for it all ourselves. If people go back and look at the records, this is probably at least the 5th, if not the 10th, different version of a sports park in different locations with different financing structures that finally got built because it finally got to the point where it made sense for the community of Pella to step into that and say, we'll make up the difference and we'll step in there and make that happen. And quite frankly, there were many times where we would have conversations with the groups that were trying to put this thing together, and they were not necessarily happy when we'd say, no, we need to reduce this, or we need to manage this, we need to come up with more fundraising, more corporate support or individual support, private fundraising, in order to accomplish those goals. And we held the line, and that's been the benefit of it, is we've been able to, until this year, keep the property tax rate, the levy rate, the same for prior to me being even on council back in 2004.
Yeah, it's a very long time. Yeah.
So
I forget the exact number of years,
Yeah, but it was prior to 2004.
Yeah.
And we maintained it all the way through until, as I said, till this year, I think.
And when you talk about specific projects, this really wasn't controversial. But when the county voted to demolish all the buildings on the former VA campus and borrow that money and make that, well, I'm going to call it an investment because there are houses going up over in Knoxville.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that was appropriate, or would you have done anything different?
It would be very. I'm not in a position that I am going to, critique somebody else's decision in that process. I wasn't there at the moment. I wasn't there under those particular situations in that environment and forced to make those kind of decisions. And so it would be very difficult for me to say they did the right thing or the wrong thing. The only thing I can tell you is, if by the grace and of the electorate, if I get elected, I will do everything in my power to make sure that going forward, where we are today, we will make good financial decisions on whatever needs to be done with that campus, pay down the debt, do whatever in order to make sure that we return the greatest amount of benefit to the taxpayers.
I think that's a good spot to end on. Is there anything more you wish to be sure to add?
No, other than I would really appreciate the focus. June 4th is the primary. It is the duty and responsibility and the honor of every citizen to go out and make sure that you vote. Please do so, and we'll see you on June the 4th.
Absolutely, and I also want to add, May the 23rd at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame in Knoxville, we will have a candidate forum. I want to keep that more conversational, like we do here on the Espresso. Just let you guys talk things out and kind of so you folks can kind of see where your differences would lie. Because I think you have 3 quality Republican candidates running. So, yeah, we'll just work on that then.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thanks for your time, and thanks for joining us.